I was reading an article in a National Geographic magazine probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it was about how towns out on the Great Plains, that would be western Nebraska, parts of Colorado, parts of Wyoming, parts of Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas. There's a whole swath, a huge great band of land out there where the population has been shrinking. And it has shrunk so far that in many parts of the Great Plains now, it's down to less than 4 people per square mile. And that is the actual definition of what a frontier is. So it's like the frontier again. And there are ghost towns. There are towns that are simply going out of business. And the teacher in this article said, when you lose the school, you lose the town. And that's what really got me thinking. It's very important for these little towns to keep a school, because if you don't keep a school system going, then no families will move to that town again. That's the end for a small town. If you lose your school, you're going to lose the whole town. So that's what really got me thinking about what would it be like to be someone in a small town like that. Plus, my wife's mom actually taught in a one-room school in Kansas in the late 1930s. That was her first job after a couple years of college. She taught at a one-room school in Kansas, so I talked to her about what it was like to have all the grades, all the different ages at one time. If I had not read that article in that National Geographic magazine, I don't think I would have written this book. When I start writing, I often don't know exactly what a book is going to be about. This one began simply trying to write about what it would be like to be a kid in a very small town where the school seemed like it might actually be closing. The school is down to one room, and that's where the name of the book, Room 1, comes from, because at this particular school, Room 1 is the only room. So I thought it was going to be about just, what would that be like? What would the challenges be like to be a kid in a very small town where the school seems to be shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because the population's getting smaller? When I got into the writing, when I found this character, Ted Hammond, and kind of getting into his world and his life, it ended up that there were things that were happening in his town. In particular, he's riding down the road one day and he sees a face in a window. And that sort of introduced a whole mystery element to the story. This particular boy, I've created him to be someone who loves mysteries, as a lot of kids do. He reads books all the time about detective stories and kids and grown-ups and other people solving mysteries. The whole mystery element kind of caught me by surprise, but it ended up being sort of a central part of the story. The first thing I came up with was this boy just seeing a face in a window. It was a deserted farmhouse, so no one was supposed to be there. And he sees this face of a girl, and she pulled away when he saw her. She saw him see her, and she pulls away, so he picks up the idea that she's hiding. So there's a mystery here. Who is that girl? Why is she in that house at this time of, very early in the morning when he's riding by? And I started trying to imagine all the different reasons why a homeless family might be in an abandoned house out in the middle of Nebraska. And I kind of looked at the map and I figured out, well, there's a huge army base down in Texas. And if someone was leaving Texas and heading to this town and had a broken down car or was hitchhiking or something, so you just start trying to imagine how a family would have gotten there. It's an unfortunate fact these days that a lot of families are being hurt, either moms or dads being killed in the war in Iraq. And that is certainly a reason why families get displaced and have to kind of move on and go back to their own families or start life over again in a different place. So one thing led to another. I didn't really plan for it to happen that way. I didn't think, I'm going to write this story about something to do with the war in Iraq. That was not in my thinking at all. I just began reasoning from where I was at that point in the story. I think part of the reason I like this character of Ted Hammond so much is that I enjoyed mysteries when I was first getting into reading and books as a kid. I read all of the Hardy Boys mysteries. That was a great series of mysteries. I also read all of the Nancy Drew. There was sort of a series that was supposed to be for boys and a series that was supposed to be for girls. But I found the mysteries in both of them to be very interesting. And then I branched off into Edgar Allan Poe's mysteries, which are kind of a whole another creepy level, and then I got into Sherlock Holmes and read all the original Sherlock Holmes mysteries by Arthur Conan Doyle. I enjoyed being scared. I enjoyed the problem solving, trying to guess, because usually in a mystery, by the time you've gotten to the 6th or 7th chapter, the person that is guilty or the person that committed the crime, or that person has been introduced, and you can kind of look over what's happening and figure out what's going on. I also read mysteries by Agatha Christie, another great British crime novelist. And I've met plenty of kids during the 7 years that I was a public school teacher. I met kids in 4th grade and 8th grade and high school. I taught all different levels. Some kids just really get into mysteries. It's almost a mathematical type of logic where you are presented with a set of facts and you are sort of trying to figure out what the solution is. Because that's all mysteries really are. It's problem solving of one kind or another. I enjoyed the way Ted started off thinking, well, I'm just going to be this detective who sweeps in and solves a mystery, and then he actually gets involved in the lives of the people, and that brings out other qualities in his character. So I enjoyed exploring this guy, Ted Hammond.